is Linda Lysakowski with our podcast today, and I'm pleased to introduce Briana Hernandez, and she's going to educate us in all things social media. I better not build the hopes up too high, huh? But I think that's pretty much what she's going to do. So tell me a little bit, Briana, first about what it is that you actually do.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Linda. And I offer a few different services. I offer social media management, copywriting, and content writing. And I differentiate between the two because copywriting is more short form. It focuses a lot on social media, slogans, things of that nature. Content is more blog posts and articles. And sometimes I will also just take the reins and just write everything from beginning to end and post on people's social media. So I'm a little bit of a Jane of all trades when it comes to the written word.
Oh, well, we always need that. My experience is more in full-length books, so we'll probably have a good dialogue here back and forth because we both love to write, love to edit, and love to get the
Absolutely.
word out there. So you've been in business for yourself. Tell us how long and what did you do before you went into business for yourself?
Absolutely. So I have been doing this for about 8 years. And I'll be honest, I did this, I started this pretty close to graduation. So I was doing internships in an undergrad. I was doing some social media management for my university, Eastern Connecticut State University's Department for College and Career Development. So I was managing their social media. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. So I ended up turning that into another internship after graduation with a local businesswoman in my town. She does online education stuff. So I managed her social media for a while. And at the same time, I started graduate school. And then while I was wrapping up my grad school education is when I went fully solo, launched my brand, launched my, website and all of that.
Is your degree in communications or?
My undergrad is in English and then my master's is in writing.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, so I think a lot of people, and including myself, I engage somebody to do my social media marketing. So it's kind of a foreign language to me. But when we talk about social media and digital marketing, what exactly is digital marketing and what makes it different from regular old marketing?
The thing with digital marketing is that it is such a broad topic, and I feel like everyone has a slightly different definition of it. For some people, it's, focusing primarily on social media. For other people, it's paid ads. For other people, it's organic traffic. And, personally, I think that a digital marketing strategy should really just be tailor made to the specific brand and company. I'm not a big advocate of the shotgun approach and just trying to, everything all at once, because when you try to market to absolutely everybody, you end up marketing to nobody. So I think when it comes to building your own digital strategy, you need to find what your goals are and, have your own definition of digital marketing and what that strategy looks like for you.
Okay, can you help people figure out what their goals should be?
Absolutely. Yes, I do offer free 30-minute, 20-minute chats. We'll hop on a Zoom just like this. And, I take a look at, their social media and I just give them some bite-sized advice. I let them know some do's and don'ts with their social media strategy. And I give some further tips from there on other digital marketing branches that they can explore.
What would you say are some of the do's and don'ts that you
I would
usually
say
find? I know it's different with every client, but
one big don't is don't leave your face off your social media. Do include photos of yourself pretty regularly. It doesn't have to be with every single post, but definitely include pictures of yourself. It can be honestly anything. You at your desk, just a selfie that you take, it can be a vacation photo. It can be a picture that a loved one took of you just standing under a tree in your yard. It doesn't matter too much. It needs to show who you are and give an idea of your personality.
That's great advice. And I think probably if everybody's like me, you probably have hundreds of pictures in your phone. In fact, thousands, most likely. I was going through some of mine thinking, oh my gosh, where did all these pictures come from? But I think that is true that you want to have, you know, your personality is really what sells people, no matter what business you're in, I think. What inspired you to get into this? Was it your work at the college or?
Yeah, it was really that internship in college that kicked things off because, when you're studying English, a lot of people are like, "Oh, are you going to go into teaching?" or, and I was thinking, I was like, "Oh, maybe," but I feel like I want to do something else I want something a little more focused on writing because I'm passionate about writing when I'm not working on my business, when I'm not working on client work, I'm, writing my own stuff. I do short stories and poetry. So I'm very passionate about writing and words. And so when I did that internship and I was like, oh, I can write and get paid to do it. So let's head in that direction.
Well, I think that's probably what brought Brianna and I together in the first place. We both found we had this passion for writing. And I know I started writing short stories when I was about 10 years old, never did anything with them until I had my own business and thought, I need to write a book. And so I think I published my first book in, I believe, 1994, I think it was, way back in the dark ages. But been writing ever since. And now I think I have about 40 some books written. And um, I think Brianna and I really clicked because of our love for writing. But do you work with all kind of businesses, and specifically, I guess a lot of my audience is nonprofit organizations. So what do you find different about the business approach to digital marketing versus the nonprofit?
That's an interesting question because I do work with quite a few nonprofits, and I've found that in those instances, where we're bringing more attention to the, charity or religious organization, whatever the nonprofit is, the focus shifts instead of pictures of you specifically, as the founder or the person running things, the focus instead becomes on the work that you do and photos of the people that you're helping. So, for example, I managed the social media for this one temple in California, and I really emphasize, we need to have photos and videos of the people that are at the temple. We need to show the people that are being helped because that is what's going to resonate with people. The people that see these posts are going to be able to, put themselves in the shoes of those people, and that's going to resonate with them.
That's Paul's temple, right?
That's right.
Well,
Yeah.
Brianna introduced me to another friend of a mutual friend, I guess he is now. He's actually going to be a podcast guest later this week with me. So we're going to have Paul on here to tell you more about that temple. But that seems like a very interesting project. I was kind of fascinated with his work. And I'm sure you've probably worked with a lot of interesting clients, both nonprofit and for profit. But what are
Yeah.
some of the really interesting things that you've worked on that kind of keep you going? I know we sometimes get bored with what we're doing and we need something exciting. And I know when I work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, and when I do, I get so inspired by their missions, no matter what they
Yeah.
are. I seem to get a lot of inspiration from that. It keeps me going. Is that what you find too?
Absolutely. Even with the for-profits, because I usually work with micro businesses that just are employing 1 to 2 to 3 people. And, it really it gives me joy just knowing that I'm helping these people grow their business and, achieve their goals. This is usually a business that they've been planning for a long time, that they've been working on for a long time. And it's so much fun seeing, more customers rolling in and just seeing that growth over time. And some of the really interesting for-profits that I've worked for, I've worked with a homemade perfume maker that she would
Oh,
use.
that sounds interesting.
Mhm. Entirely like oil-based, like all natural perfumes. I've
Oh,
worked with soap makers, self-published
oh,
authors. Yeah, I've run the gamut.
wow. So tell us about some of the self-published authors because I'm one, but I'm kind of curious what you recommend for the self-published authors and what kind of authors have they been? Fiction, nonfiction, or a little bit of both?
Fiction and nonfiction. And I would say with that same advice, you should always include pictures of yourself, snippets of the story without giving too much away, little teasers. Videos are pretty big, so you would want to include reels that incorporate your book cover, but you definitely also want to include your face wherever possible because nothing beats, just a simple post that says, "Hi, this is me. This is my book. Here I am."
I find as an author, I find one of the most challenging things about writing a book and getting it published is writing the book is easy for me anyway.
Yeah.
The hardest part is getting it published and then marketing it once it's published.
Mhm.
So, what advice do you have for those authors?
For authors that have a huge amount of books, because I've noticed that many self-published authors tend to have a large collection, you would want to have one book that's maybe a bit smaller than the others that you have for free, because that way, that free book can become a way to generate leads. Because a very big misconception people have about social media marketing is that it's this digital salesman that you put out a post and you get X amount of sales. It's a little more complicated than that. You want to use your social media to generate leads, to grab names and emails, add people to your newsletter, and slowly work them toward making a purchase that way. And a good way to get that ball rolling is having a freebie. So that way you can get people in the door and then you can keep the conversation going from there via email newsletters.
Well, that's a great idea. I really like that. I have to think about that and see what I can do with my own works. But you mentioned a big misconception. I think there's probably a lot of misconceptions. Um, are there, what are there some other misconceptions that people have about social media marketing?
Say another big misconception that people have is focusing too much on one medium. A lot of people like to put all their effort into reels or put all their effort into posts. Yeah, I suppose that can work with the people that go super duper viral, but for the average, micro business, you're going to want to do a bit of both, reels and text and image posts, because that way you are getting your content on different algorithms. And I'm speaking about Facebook specifically here. Facebook treats reels a bit differently than text and image posts. So by putting out different kinds of posts, you're maximizing your exposure.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I find reels very confusing because for me, when I open up a reel, I seem to get 20 reels. I get a notice that here's a reel from so and so who maybe is a friend of mine or somebody I know. And when I look at it, it disappears. And then the next 19 show up. And I'm like, who are these people? I didn't ask for this.
That
I
is
don't
the
know. Am I
algorithm
doing
at play.
something wrong or is that a common thing that happens with reels?
That's very common. That is the Facebook algorithm at play. They're trying to figure out what you like. So they're like, "Oh, you like content from this person? Well, here's someone else that's doing something similar, or here's something that everyone in your, demographic is
Hmm.
watching, so you might like it."
Oh, I guess. Are there certain kinds of, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but are there certain kinds of social media that you think are more effective than others? I mean, I know there's some that I signed up for and I never use, and I think, why am I even subscribing to this? But what do you recommend? A mix of all different kinds or focusing on one thing like Facebook? What's your recommendation?
I think it really depends on the business and the person. I think Facebook is a really good, place to start for just about everyone. And then from there, where you go to next really depends on your organization. Some people will perform really well on Instagram, especially if you have a business that produces a lot of visually appealing products, whereas people that are more they focus more on digital goods, maybe LinkedIn is a better fit for them. Or if they have a brick and mortar location, I would recommend TikTok so that you can
Hmm.
record your actual location and then put videos up so that people can see what your business looks like. So there's no one size fits all answer, but I would definitely recommend that 99% of people get on Facebook.
Okay, well, that's good to know because that's the one I tend to gravitate to the most. I
Mhm.
think probably because it's easier than some of the other ones to use.
Yeah.
And I know there for a while, Pinterest was really big with people who had something to
Yes.
sell, like a specific product. Do you work with that as well?
I've worked with Pinterest before, although you are right, it has fallen off in popularity. I've found that the only people that are really interested in Pinterest these days are photographers, wedding
Mm.
photographers, portrait photographers, landscape photographers. That's really, and also digital artists. That's really where people go to when they go to Pinterest, because their work is so visual that Pinterest helps them get their work out there.
And when people, you mentioned, posting videos or reels, do you recommend that people do these just themselves with their phone or whatever? Or is it ever make sense for them to hire a professional videographer to do maybe a 10-15 minute video or something?
That's a great question. I would actually recommend that people usually do it themselves
Mhm.
because people like that authenticity. They like the relatability. They like being able to see the person behind the brand. And there's just this rawness that you can't replicate just when you're holding your phone in front of your face and just giving your honest thoughts about your business. I've seen this a lot, especially with my fellow marketers where they'll just, put out a 30-second video talking about what they've learned, things that they recommend. So I don't think that a professional videographer is really necessary unless you're covering a massive event, like you're a brick and mortar store celebrating your 10-year anniversary. And if you put a big bash, sure, hire a videographer for that. But otherwise, you can use the people and resources you already have available to you.
With the nonprofit community, you mentioned showing pictures of the people they help, which I think is really critical because as a fundraiser, I know that people want to see their money in action. If they're going to contribute to you financially, they want to see what you're doing and what you're helping. But do you think that's best done with still photos or with video or both?
I would recommend a mixture of both. One nonprofit I worked with a few years ago, they focused on delivering clean water to impoverished parts of the world. And I
Oh,
think that photos were very powerful because the pictures they told a story, whereas, videos they didn't always convey the story as clearly as a photo. With a photo, you can stop, you can take in the entire scene, you can read the caption that goes with it. And, and that with that client, we used videos very sparingly. So I think a mix of the two is necessary, but it's definitely you have to take it on a case by case basis.
and I know that because of your background in writing, you mentioned newsletters before putting people on your newsletter list. Do you also help with that, with people that need to produce newsletters and don't know where to start or
I do indeed.
written
Yes,
newsletters?
I definitely work on newsletters. I've worked on writing the copy for newsletters and also the graphic design aspect. I'm
Oh,
very skilled in Canva.
oh, good. So, what advice do you have for people with newsletters? I find that, I've seen some nonprofit newsletters. It's like, I don't really care that one of your employees had a 10-year anniversary or what's on your lunch menu in the cafeteria today. I want to hear
Yeah.
stories about the people that you help. Do you find that there's certain things that people will either read a newsletter or throw it away and not even open it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in the case of nonprofits, you want to keep those newsletters pretty sparing. You want to do it maybe once a month, once a quarter, kind of just give people a state of the, business, just talk about what's going on, what has happened. And but when it comes to for-profit businesses, you can get away with being a little more frequent. You really have to know your audience and you have to know what interests them, and definitely monitor the analytics as well, because that will tell you, what is resonating with people and what's not. A lot of email newsletter programs like MailerLite and MailChimp, they'll let you see how many people have opened your newsletters, how many people
Right.
clicked on links. So it's important to really monitor that and adjust your strategy as necessary.
Are there any people out there that are still doing print newsletters and mailing them?
I haven't seen any except for maybe like local politicians and papers and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten any either, but I remember when digital newsletters first came out. This is way, way back in dark ages, but I was doing a print newsletter. I started my business in 1993, so this is going back quite a while. And after a couple of years, I thought, this is real. And everybody said, oh, print newsletters are the greatest because then people will read it and then they'll show it to somebody else. They'll pass it along or they'll lay it on their desk or something and people will pick it up. And I thought, you never know with print newsletters who's reading it because you don't have those great analytics that you get from MailChimp and other sources like that. But when I decided to go to an e-newsletter, I I published a print newsletter and I said I'm going to be going to an e-newsletter, and if you still want the print newsletter, let me know and I will mail it to you. And guess how many people I had respond?
How
One.
many?
One
Oh
person
gosh.
wanted it, and this was way back when like I said, e-newsletters were really brand new, and I thought nobody wants this in hard copy anymore. So it saves a lot of money because you don't have to mail them. But I think the more important thing that you said was analytics, and I think that's so important. I have a friend of mine who works for a nonprofit and she does development and marketing, but her expertise is really in marketing. And she did a report of all the analytics that every media that they use produce. And I thought, and she said her bosses and everybody in the organization was just so overwhelmed with the statistics that she presented. But I think that's a lot of problems is we don't analyze which ones are successful. Is that what you find?
So true. I actually have multiple clients that I meet with them once a week just so that we can go over the analytics to keep strategies fresh and adjust as necessary. Because yeah, if you stop looking at what's resonating with people, then you're going to end up with posts that don't perform well, or any type of marketing strategy. It won't perform as well if you're not keeping track of what people are paying attention to, especially now in this digital age. Things move so quickly, people's
Oh,
interests change so quickly. So you have to see where the attention is going, because, everyone is just, they have the attention, their attention is constantly diverted and being split among so many different things.
that's true. And if they're like me, I mean, I get so much that I get to the point now
Yes.
where I don't even open some stuff because it's like,
Yes.
I just don't have time to read it all. So I pick and choose the ones that I'm really interested in. And it's challenging, I think, because people probably wonder why I'm not responding well. It's because I just don't have time to open it all.
So true. And I think that's why we've really seen a rise in these, clickbaity titles and, email subject lines, because people know that they have so much competition that they want to go for shock value and whatever's going to get the most eyeballs on their content. So it's just very interesting seeing how much the landscape has changed these last few years.
I know I get a lot of requests that say, some of them will say right up front, I'm not asking for money. I want you to sign a petition or something like that. And then, of course, in the end, you sign the petition and then they ask you for money anyway.
Yes, that's how they get you. You know, they start with these very interesting hooks and they hook you and then you read through to the end.
I just got one the other day that said that Michelle Obama was inviting me to serve on the board of her foundation or something, and I thought, Michelle Obama doesn't know me from Adam, you know. And of course, it was one of those that, well, when you got to the end of a few questions, it was not, well, you contribute to, she doesn't want me
Yep.
to serve on her board. She wants my, not she personally, but this organization wanted my money. It wasn't that they
Yeah.
were at all
These,
looking, but
yep.
so what are some real keys strategies that you would suggest, maybe some secrets that you, if you don't mind sharing a couple secrets with our audience about what's successful or not.
Absolutely. When it comes to social media, consistency. You want to post regularly. You want to have a posting schedule and you want to adhere to that schedule because that way Facebook knows that you are an active account, you are putting out interesting content, and over time, Facebook will push out your content further out to more and more people. So you definitely want to remain consistent. It doesn't even need to be this very rigid, you know, 5 times a week or, you know, 2 times a day. You know, it doesn't need to be high intensity, even just once a week,
Mm.
twice a week.
Oh,
Anything is better than nothing. And consistency is always better than inconsistency. Even just something as small as I will post every Wednesday at lunchtime. That's going to make a bigger difference than not posting at all.
right. What other secrets have you learned over the years that you wouldn't mind sharing with us? Not, we don't want you to give the store away because we want everybody to contact you if they need help, but
I would definitely say that if you have group photos, those can be just as effective as photos of yourself. Of course, they have to, you know, work in context. You have to find a way to tie the group photo in with the caption. But, you know, the name of the game when it comes to social media strategy is faces, pulling the curtain back and seeing the person behind the brand. So, you know, the more you can show your face, the face of your business partners, the face of customers that you've worked with, you know, that's all going to perform well. People like faces.
that's probably very true. And I was always taught in marketing strategy before it was digital marketing that when you use group photos, like they should be maybe 3 or 4 people, but not 25 people because
Right.
people don't get attracted to that. Is that still true?
I would say it depends. It's on a case by case basis because, again, if you're, I think brick and mortar stores, they always have a bit more leeway because they have the benefit of foot traffic and a
Right.
physical location that they can show off on social media. So if you're a brick and mortar business, you can definitely get away with bigger groups, especially if you're organizing an event. For example, I work with a t-shirt print shop. And so, yeah, and they can get away with having group pictures because they're always putting on like printing parties and, you know, putting on all kinds of events and they're located near a casino. So they
Oh,
have a bit more leeway.
hmm,
So
that's interesting.
definitely, yeah, definitely a case by case basis.
You've worked with a wide variety of nonprofits and t-shirt businesses and all kind of different organizations and companies. What's your favorite if you have a favorite? Not that you don't have to name the specific company, but what type of business or industry do you find most fascinating?
You know, I find the health and beauty industry so
Oh,
fascinating because there is so many, subcategories and unique products that you would never even think of, like, essential oil-based perfumes or,
Right.
soap made with all natural herbs or, it's all so fascinating. No two businesses are exactly alike.
Yeah. It sounds like you've worked with really a lot of different things. So what's your future? Do you expect to expand your business, branch out into anything different?
Absolutely. I'm looking at branching out into web design because
Oh,
I've noticed that a lot of people that I've worked with, they have their social media all in order and then they have nowhere to send people. So
mm,
having a solid website, even if it's just a couple of pages, is key. And I did some coding classes while I was, studying.
oh,
So I know my way around WordPress. So that's one thing I'm really looking to branch into further in 2026 and also more consulting because I've had people approach me that are like, I already have a marketing team in place, or I want to do my marketing myself. I just need some guidance. Can we just hop on, a 2 hour, consultation call and, we'll just build a strategy from A to Z. So I'm looking to expand my consulting side of things further.
I think that's a good point, though. Even though people have the expertise to do things, right now I'm working with someone who is a brilliant fundraiser, one of the best I've ever worked with, and they're doing a $3.5 million capital campaign. And she said, I just need somebody to bounce ideas off. And so she just pays me a monthly retainer and we meet by Zoom. We're thousands of miles away from each other, but doesn't matter in this day and age, I think. But I think a lot of people, even though they may have a team, sometimes just need to hear from an expert of how our team can work more productively or what's new and are we heading on the right path? I think that's a great suggestion to get into. I, but the website design, you sort of surprised me because I would have thought that before people even thought about social media, they would have a good website in place. Is that not the truth? I guess I'm wrong.
Really depends. Like consultants don't always have a website up because
Ah,
their business is entirely, Zoom based. They just need, a Calendly link, and usually their social media serves as like their landing page where they talk about all the services that they have to offer and their, price points and all of that.
yeah.
So sometimes the website comes secondary. Another thing, I've already had two projects like this where they were existing websites, but they just needed to give the websites a full facelift. They wanted to change,
Um,
this, that, and the other thing, and just, bring the website into the future.
oh, that makes a lot of sense, I think, because I would have thought that would be the first thing that you would do is have a website. I know for me it was before I even got into any social media. It was
Mhm.
get a website up in place first. So it sounds like a wise move to think about website design. And I think you're right that so many people have a website, but frankly, it's just not very good. And they probably started it, 10 years ago and never did anything different to it. And now I think people
Right.
automatically will go to your website. And if they don't like the look of your website, they probably won't go any further. So,
Exactly. Yeah. People do so much vetting these days. Having a nice landing page, even just the home page,
mm.
makes a huge difference. Even if the other pages look like they were, made 20 years ago. If your home page is nice,
That's
you've got
true. Yeah. Because if your homepage isn't nice, it won't go any further. That's for sure.
right. Exactly.
Uh, so, what else would you like to share with us? I want to thank you. This has been very informative for me personally, and I'm sure it is for our audience too. But what else would you like to share with us? Anything I
Yeah.
missed?
I think we really covered everything. I've really enjoyed being on this show. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I have too. And I again thank you for putting me in touch with Paul. I can't wait to interview him because his temple sounds really quite interesting. It's a Hindu temple, right?
Mhm.
Because when you say temple, that could be any number of faiths.
Right.
And I have a very deep interest in so I have a spirituality podcast in addition to the podcast that I do for nonprofits. But I think what you have given us and the messages for the nonprofit sector and for businesses too, because some of my listeners are consultants like myself, and I interview a lot of other consultants too, the various perspectives on the nonprofit sector. But I think you're so right about showing people the people that you help. I was just talking to someone else in the nonprofit sector today that said, you know, the most important thing is to build relationships. Just show them what you're doing to help. And even like you said, the water, I was fascinated by that clean water project because without clean water, there are people dying all over the world and sick and ailing children and showing them. Um, I often use as an example when you talk about things like clean water or big projects like that. I always use as an example I believe it's Christian Children's Fund. I said, if you go and approach somebody and say, there's 5 million starving children in Africa or India or wherever, people can't relate to that. They think, what good is my gift going to be to help 5 million starving people? But if they see little Maria who can't afford shoes, so she can't walk to school 6 miles through the jungle because she doesn't have shoes, that really impacts people. And they always highlight the individual children that are being helped. And I think when we come to tackle big projects like clean water, and I'm a big environmentalist, so that one really touched my heart to think about how you can approach people, and it's showing the people that you help. So I think that was alone was worth today's interview.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah.
Well, and maybe we'll have you back again as you get more into the website design, and we can talk about websites, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I would
And,
love that.
and
Would
I
love
think we've
to.
seen them all, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. I think I already have some stories. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, we'll have you back someday to talk about website design when you get more into that area. But I want to thank you for your time. You've been very, very helpful, and we'll give people links on how to get in touch with you through all your social media and website and everything else. So we'll
Wonderful.
be in touch with you shortly. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.